Hey guys, injury lawyer Scott DeSalvo here, and as you might be able to tell, I'm stuck in traffic, and so I decided I would shoot you a video. And today's video is going to be on the topic of what makes a car crash case or a car accident case worth a big settlement. In other words, what makes a case good and valuable versus what makes it, smaller and less valuable. So here's how it breaks down. The first thing is, what does liability look like? That's lawyer talk for who caused the crash, and it's usually a combination of things, right? So if you're stopped in traffic and somebody rear ends you, you're stopped at a traffic light. The traffic light is very clear. It's a clear day, no rain, no fog, and you've been stopped for 30 seconds and somebody just clobbers you from behind. That's a very strong liability case, and that makes your case absolutely more valuable. But let's talk about reality. Most cases aren't like that. Let's say you catch a red light and you somewhat hastily stop at the red light, but you're able to stop without hitting the guy in front of you, and then somebody behind you hits you. Well, in that factual scenario, the person behind you's insurance company will claim that you stopped too quickly or too abruptly, and in front of a judge or jury, they may assign you some percentage of liability. In other words, they might say, well, yeah, we rear-ended you. It's 90% our fault, but it's 10% your fault because you stopped suddenly too. Not a good argument, but it is an argument that does work to some degree in court, and that's why insurance companies have their lawyers argue that. So if there's any basis for an insurance company lawyer to argue that you were somewhat at fault, the way the law works in virtually every state, but certainly Illinois, is your recovery for being injured is reduced by the percentage of your own fault. Here's an example. Let's say your case is worth $100,000, but you're found to be 10% responsible. Well, that means you don't get $100,000, you get $90,000, which is $100,000 reduced by 10% for your fault. So you can see that whether it's true or not, whether there's any sort of credible argument for the other side to say you were partially at fault, it has a big outcome on the value of your case. Now, the other thing for you to know is that if you are found by a judge or jury to be more than 50% at fault in your car crash case, you get nothing. That's the law in Illinois. If you're 51% responsible and the other person is 49% responsible, you just lose your case. No recovery. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, what makes a car crash case worth a big settlement. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is the nature and extent of your injuries and how much medical care did you get. So in other words, if you have a broken leg, and believe it or not, I've had clients like this, where they broke their leg, didn't go to a doctor at all, and then, literally didn't even go to the emergency room. They later had some leg pain and went to the doctor like a year later and said, oh, you have a slightly out of place fracture in your leg, or it's in place, but we can tell it was broken. All injury cases require medical treatment to document the injury, and there's no injury or illness that benefits from a late diagnosis or no treatment. So even if it's just treating your pain and documenting it for case value purposes, getting medical care after an injury is super, super important. And it also depends on the extent of the treatment. So if you have a couple of weeks of treatment versus a couple of months of treatment versus a couple of years of treatment with a doctor's opinion that you're probably never going to get better, obviously all of those things factor in. So the nature and seriousness of the injury itself and the amount of medical treatment you get is super, super important. So the third thing I want to talk to you about, it's sort of a left turn. A lot of you maybe don't think about this, but I can promise you people who do what I do definitely think about it. It's the insurance picture, right? So in car crash cases, almost all the time in a more serious injury case, we're limited in what we can get by insurance policy limits. So in the state of Illinois, which is where I practice, The legislature changed the law. It used to be you only had to have $20,000 worth of insurance, and now it's $25,000 worth of insurance. But I don't know if you've noticed, I'm certainly acutely aware of it because it's what I do for a living, but medical care, the cost of medical care, especially the cost of physical therapy, has really gone up. So getting medical care is super, super expensive, and I routinely represent people who get into a car crash or, have some other kind of injury case. Their medical bills are $30,000, $40,000, but they've been involved in a crash with somebody who has like a 25 policy. Well, of course, we can collect the $25,000 policy, and the way it works is that policy gets like divided up, and I get the doctors to reduce their bills, and my clients always put money in their pocket. Even if I have to cut my attorney's fee, which I'm not crazy about doing, obviously, because I work really hard to help injured people, but I'll do it if that's just the way it is. But there's other things we can do even when there's a low policy. But I would really say that's the third big factor in whether a car accident case is going to be worth a big settlement, because you will never get an insurance company with a $25,000 insurance policy to offer more than that $25,000 to settle the case. So you can have $1 million in medical bills, but if they've got a $25,000 policy, that's all they're on the hook for. And the truth is, most people with $25,000 of insurance are not wealthy people. So they don't own a hotel or a big business, so that if we go after them personally up above and beyond what their insurance is, it's probably not collectible, and they're $1,000 bankruptcy away from them owing you nothing. So the amount of insurance is huge, but there's lots of different ways that I can find additional insurance on cases. So I thought it would be important for you to know that. So those are the three things, like who's at fault for the crash and how credible is their argument that you might be partially at fault, whether you believe it or not. What's the nature and seriousness of your injury, and how much medical care did you get, and how well documented are your injuries and the permanence of your injuries? And then the third one is, what does insurance look like, and how much insurance is there, and is there some additional insurance? For example, there is something called uninsured and underinsured motorists. So if somebody runs into you and they only have a $25,000 policy, but you have $100,000, that obviously gives us an opportunity to collect far more money for you. And carrying uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage is the law in Illinois, unless you specifically sign a waiver saying you don't want it. So these are things for you to think about. Even if the other person had no insurance or insufficient insurance, you may still be able to recover if you have an attorney who knows how this stuff works and is going to take the time to chase all the revenue sources down. So that's what you need to know about whether your car accident case might be worth a big settlement. But listen, I created a tool on my website. It's called the settlement value calculator, and it's basically just a few questions. You go to the web page, you answer just a few questions, and in about 10 or 15 seconds you get an answer about the ballpark value of your case. And I also have, do I have a good case calculator? So I'm going to include those at the end of this video or in links in the description below. And the cool thing is both of them are free. They're easy to use. They're written in plain English. You don't need to be a lawyer or a paralegal or a legal secretary to understand that the questions are all in plain English, and they give you an answer in plain English, so that you don't need to talk to a lawyer, you don't need to consult with anyone. You're going to get some idea. Of course, I make a living by representing injured people, so if you've been injured or you have questions, I'm happy to answer your questions and talk to you about maybe representing you. And you can do that by calling me at 312-500-4500. Again, 312-500-4500. You can call that number anytime, night or day. Free phone call. Nobody's going to charge you for making the phone call. And, if you just have a question, I can answer it for you. And if you're interested in being represented, we can talk about that. I can screen the case and tell you your case strength and weaknesses in a free consultation. So if you need a lawyer, please consider giving me a call. Otherwise, thanks for watching the video and have a great day.